lose the critical faculty? Why is it that there are many intelligent people within his organization,
Right.
biographers, writers, heads of corporations, and when they're confronted with this, they just don't want to deal with it. They just see it as negativity. They think that
Because
it's just something for them. It doesn't matter what JR does, it's his own business. But yet, since your reports, and it's interesting that the Los Angeles Times, in doing their intensive investigation, which they published this last August 14th and 15th of 1988, they interviewed over 100 people, and yet they didn't really focus on any of your experience in the article.
Of course.
Which is quite interesting. There may be certain reasons for it, but yet,
I think they
prior to that article, you were the strongest critic
of JR.
You made a stand, and yet there was enough information without your involvement.
That's right.
That's right.
I'm actually very pleased with the LA Times and very pleased with People Magazine because I am not the story. JR and his disciples are the story. What the LA Times did was correct. They went to the informants, those people that have been manipulated or abused by JR, and they went on record for the first time. Personally, there's no reason I should be doing this videotape. The informants, those people that have gone through all this should be talking about. But since I've been robbed and since I've been involved in all of this, I've become kind of a partner in this. So it's important for me. Exactly. So it's important for me to get this information out. So I think the LA Times did an excellent job. People Magazine did an excellent job. In fact, Geraldo, I was supposed to be on Geraldo's show a week ago, but since I don't like the show very much, I didn't do it. But to get the information.
Your nose broken, huh?
Might have my nose broken up the show as I'm working this guy. But what I'm trying to say, and it was in connection with JR, is that my information is simply this. Why can't you look at a God, both sides, the light and the dark? And the fact is, that dark side is really deeply entrenched. If an elementary school teacher did what JR did, he would be booted out and nobody would question it. We have to speak God, a spiritual leader, we don't question it. Look, to answer your question most directly, why do people allow themselves to be suckered into this? Because it's our problem. Every human being has one problem. They don't want to confess ignorance. They don't want to say, I really don't know. The universe is a mystery, and I'm sitting in the middle of it. I don't know really where I am. So instead of confessing to that I really don't know, and there might be beings that may be one step higher than me, and I can show them respect, instead, much like dogmatic religion, we immediately say this guy's got to be God. And you've got to believe it, or don't believe it, and you're off the path. You've got the red monk disease. Instead of saying, I'm not sure. Now, I've met a number of Shabd Yoga masters in India.
So you got a grant.
Right, exactly.
From a university?
From UCSD to collect books in the Sant tradition and meet various sants. Now, here's the point. I've met some really nice, incredible human beings. But do I know they're God? I don't. In fact, nobody knows. So instead of confessing ignorance, I really don't know, but he's a good human being, I'll check his teachings out, that's the smart thing to do. Because one day he says God, the next day he's a jerk. So that's the problem. Is people just don't want to accept ignorance.
Even now, with the recent publications on John-Roger, there's still people going around saying, well, I've separated the teachings from the teacher. And the teachings work for me.
Okay.
How would you respond to that?
Well, you can't object to that. I tell you why you can't object to that. Because if that's what people want to do, they do it in Roman Catholicism. I mean, The Last Temptation of Christ comes out. A lot of people hate the movie. I thought it was great. It showed the human quality of Jesus. Do we know who Jesus was 2,000 years ago? Bottom line, we don't. And this might offend people, but I'm a Roman Catholic. I can cut into my own religion. Do we really know who Guru Nanak was? Or Swamiji Maharaj? Or Kabir? No, we don't. We have these kind of mythological conceptions. So when somebody says, I separate the teacher and the teachings, well, there's a billion Catholics who've done it. St. Teresa of Avila did it. St. John of the Cross did it. I'm sure Pope John II does it. We all try to do that. But instead of condoning the actions of a fraudulent teacher, my personal bias is better to move on. Look for somebody who's a decent human being. Not somebody who's manipulating for name and fame and everything else.
I was just recalling how before in some of the letters, part of John-Roger's criticisms towards you is that you're a follower of Sant Ma.
Right.
And that because you are, that you may have a vested interest in exposing John-Roger, since they claim they have the pure,
Of course, pure teachings. That's
pure
right.
teachings of the light and sound.
Mhm.
How would you respond to someone within the movement saying, well,
I think
David Lane, he might have some agenda here. He's been
Right.
robbed. He follows Sant-Mont, and maybe they're jealous of John-Roger and becoming popular.
That's right. It's a legitimate question. It's a good question. It's a right question to ask. But the two things you have to, first of all, determine is, one is, no doubt I have my biases. There's no question I have my biases. I have a bias toward nonviolence. I have a bias toward people being honest. I have a bias for saints claiming he's not God. I definitely have that bias. There's no doubt. And I gravitate toward people like a Faqir Chand, or like Radhasoami, or Tara and Tar, or Ramana Maharshi of South India. But the key thing is this, not what David Lane thinks, or he's biased or prejudiced. It's whether or not the information that has been conveyed, outside of its source, the medium which may be biased, is true or not. That is, check the documents. Look at the information yourself. Don't worry about if David Lane follows this path or that path, or he's got a hidden axe to grind. We all got metaphysical pathos, as my teacher says. There's no doubt about it. I have my own. But that's not the reason I exposed JR. The only reason I exposed JR is because his disciples came to me. And because I was friends with JR. And it bothered me that somebody who I thought for 5 years was a friend and was fairly okay turned out to be a real charlatan. I would do it, bottom line, I would do it to my own guru if that was the case. You have to. I mean, that's what truth is about. Faqir Chand said to me years ago, he said, look, what are we concerned with? Belief systems or finding out what reality is? What is the truth of our condition? Why should we fake it with one another? I don't care if it's my guru, it's Roman Catholicism, or any tradition. Critical edge is important.
Speaking of gurus in general, since the 70s and the 80s, there's a lot of negative publicity on gurus.
Right.
And even though there are some good teachers around, it just seems there's just a lot of negative attention. So how can someone reestablish faith again after being involved in the movement?
By not believing. Number one, don't believe. There's no need to believe anybody. Why believe something? You don't know it to be the case. So gravitate towards somebody normal. You know, Aaron and I were talking about this guy named Tucker. I mean, he makes John-Roger look like a nice guy. This guy's had sex with hundreds of women. He beats them up. And there's even reports he killed a West German woman on tour in India. Now, what do you do with somebody like that? Do you tell them, well, wait a second, I got the true path. Let me tell you what it is. No. You say, look, we're all in the same boat. We're all struggling. Ask deep, critical questions. So my feeling is that there's nothing wrong with the rational mind. Why believe anything? Let the truth come of its own accord. Like Faqir Chand once said, truth always wins, whatever that truth may be. That's my bias.
Good. Is there anything else you'd like to mention about the robbery?
Concerning the robbery, only this, is that even if you're watching this videotape, looking at me and you say, I'm not convinced JR did it. Okay, that's one thing. What I would like to see John-Roger do is sue someone. Take a lawsuit. Get this information out there. And I'd love to have John-Roger retract. Say, I had nothing to do with it. I was actually in Jack in the Box. But he won't do that. The problem is that he is guilty. The problem is that he is the one behind it.
Some people will say, well, look, the LA Times did their piece. People magazine did theirs. You've done your articles. There was the Sun Chronicle in Massachusetts. Cult Awareness Network has written about him in their newsletters. Various staff members have made themselves accessible to people within the movement if they wanted to check things out.
Right.
As John-Roger.
John-Roger neologism. Check it out. See for yourself.
Part of his teachings are to check things out. So, yet there are people that will say, well, on the inner, I don't need to check it out. I have my experiences. These tones are charged.